Hey guys, welcome in our studio in Emmeloord. Today we are going to talk about the many uses you can have with your Hensel beauty dish. Join us for today's episode of Digital Classroom, and it's all about modifying your light source. Let's go. Hey guys, now beauty dishes are there in many sizes and many forms. Every single light brand actually has their own beauty dish. And why is that? Well, I think the beauty dish is one of the most versatile light sources. Now, of course, I loved focus light, like for example strip lights or softboxes with grids, but the beauty dish is something special. And why is that? Well, when you look at the beauty dish itself, it's literally like a dish, but inside there's a deflector, and it actually means that you're not using your light directly on your model, but you're actually using a sort of bounce light. And it creates a very nice quality of light for beauty portraits. Now, beauty dishes you can buy in different sizes. Now, always remember that the smaller the size, the harsher the light quality. But you can also change the inlay of your beauty dish. For example, this is a silver one, but you can also get them in white. Silver is a little bit more of a harsher shadow, which personally I like. So why the beauty dish from Hensel? When you look at the design, it's different from other beauty dishes, and that's because there are two circles here, and it actually creates a much better gradient between the light. And well, there are a lot more things that you can do with this beauty dish. So let's take a look at first the standard beauty dish on our beautiful model here. I'm going to explain in a moment why we do it like that. And then we're going to switch over every time to different setups. Okay, for the first setup, I'm going to use the beauty dish as it is here. Now, of course, we're going to place it differently, and I'm going to explain that before we start with the photos. Now, to make something like this interesting, but also educational, we have to make sure that everything stays exactly the same. And that means that today we are joined by, what's your name again? Okay, she's a little bit shy. The main reason I'm using a prop like this at the moment is because it can't run away. Now, when it does run away, because then it's over. But anyway, so we're using a doll for the very simple reason we want to make sure that you guys see the difference between every light setup exactly the same thing. And when I started out with photography, I sometimes had trouble seeing the difference between a white beauty dish and a silver one. And that was because the model was always changing a little bit in between. So at one point I just took a mannequin and then everything just clicked. So that's why for this video we're using a mannequin, and we're actually aiming the strobe like that to show you what we place in front of the strobes. So first setup is as it's supposed to be, right? The deflector and the beauty dish. Now let's see what happens when we use something like this on our beautiful mannequin. Now, as you can see, a beautiful light quality, for as far as you can see it, but anyway, you know what I mean, right? It looks great. But now what if you want to focus your light a little bit more? Now, of course, you know when you want to focus your light, you use something called a honeycomb grid or a grid. And grids are in different sizes again. You can really focus your light by a very fine or thick grid, or you can make it a little bit more wider. And let's do both. Let's start with something that's very fine. That's the one I have in my hand. Now, when I look straight through, you probably can see my face on the video, but when I move it a little bit like this, I'm gone. And that's actually also what happens to the light. So when you use a grid, always ask your model, can you see straight through the grid? Because if she can see straight through the grid, she's in the hotspot of the light, and you don't have to figure out later on like, hey, how do I place my lights? So this is a very tight grid, so it means it focuses the light. Now, if that is a little bit too much, just let's look at the picture. As you can see here, it's okay. Now, if you want a little bit more light, then you can of course also use a grid like this. Now, this is more wide, and as you can see here, it takes some more time before you don't see my face. And it also means that the light is a little bit more wider. So let's take a look at the shot that we took with this grid. As you can see, we light more from the scene, and you already now have three totally different ways of shooting your model. And this is where it would normally stop, but not with us and not with the Hensel Beauty Dish, because we have more. So let's go for the next scene and really focus that light. Now, of course, you can use your deflector, but what if you take out the deflector and put in a little grid? Let's see what happens. So we're going to take this out. There we go. And we just place this little grid in and close it. And now look at the image. As you can see, it's a different image. It gives you another look. But there's more. Now we have the small grid inside. Remember these grids? Let's take 2 shots with these grids too. So the first shot I'm going to take is with a very fine grid. And this is the result. So this is with the smaller grid inside and the fine grid. And now we're going to take a shot with the wider grid and of course the smaller grid inside. You see a distinct difference between the two. It's a little bit subtle, but it can really make a difference if you really want to pinpoint that light. But there's more. Now you might not think about it, but how about totally nude, without any modification? Well, you still have the rings inside of course, but no grid and no deflector. If you want maximum spread of your light and you don't have any other light source, this can be a great solution. Let's take a look at the results. Now you might think, Frank, that was it, right? No, I have one more and then I'm really gonna let you guys go. Now, what if you really need to cover a lot of light and you also want to cover your backdrop and your model and it has to be super soft light? How about bouncing against the ceiling? Now, in this case, we didn't want to change the distance between our mannequin and the strobe. So I want to give you the exact same setup with exactly the same modifier, right? So we aimed it at the ceiling and now you can see that the backdrop gets a lot of light and the model a little bit less. Now there's something called the inverse square law, where light falls off over the distance. And it's the square law, right? So if you use something like this and you move your light further away from your model, you can actually steer how much light is falling on the backdrop and how much is falling on your model, as you can see in the results here. But for this result, I literally changed the position of the strobes. Okay guys, I really hope you enjoyed this tip about using the Hensel beauty dish in many different ways. Now I have to be honest with you guys, this beauty dish just screams for using it in many different ways. But don't think about it like this, it's only the beauty dish from Hensel. Because every single light source has hidden beauties in it. Think only about, for example, feathering. Not aiming your light source at your model, but only using the size of the lights, which are way softer. Or how about using a strip light, but not using the center part, but using the sides, and maybe use the center part as a sort of sandwich, lighting your model with the front, the backdrop with the back, and that center part using as an accent light. If you really look at your light sources, there are so many different options than just using it straight on your model. And I hope this video triggered some creativity that you guys go out and try it with your own setups. And feel free to post your results in our social media stream and you will get some comments from me. Now, if you're panicking and you go like, hey Frank, wait a minute, I don't have Hensel, I have a different brand. Don't worry, there are many converters available on AliExpress, Amazon, B&H or any other big camera store that you will actually be able to convert a Hensel beauty dish to any other strobe. For example, Elingram or Profoto or whatever brand you have. Just buy the proper connector from Hensel to your strobes. And I'm really gonna end this video. If you like what we do, subscribe to our channel, leave comments below and of course smash that like button. See you again next time. Bye guys.